Tabei has just released Arc 8 Chapter 41, and this video will be a summary of the chapter. Highly recommend you check out my Arc 8 Chapter 40 summary. Anyways, let's begin. Groovy Gamlet has no interest in stargazers. This isn't brought about due to hostility or dislike, but due to indifference. That's because in everyday life you do not come across stargazers. And Oobleck, who had access to the castle, didn't really speak to anyone else. Groovy only remembers speaking to him once, and he told Oobleck to shut up. He didn't understand why Chisha, Vincent, or the Prime Minister listened to Oobleck, or what they thought about the Stargazer. Groovy knew that Oobleck, however, was loyal to the Empire. He could smell it. Groovy swears at the thorns that pierce him. Even experienced warriors would shriek at their vitals being pierced. The thorns could not be shaken off. Groovy sees that Aldebaran and Cecilus are under the effect and tells Al to back off. Groovy hits Aldebaran in the belly and Al falls over. Groovy then pulls Aldebaran over to the shade of the building. Cecilus then appears, smiling. Groovy asks him if he ate the thorns, but Cecilus says that he didn't, but they'll look better as flowers. We see Cecilus smiling despite the pain. Cecilus states if you contort your face in pain, you're not much of an actor for the audience. Groovy swears at Cecilus, summarizing his philosophy and his mantra as you can't lose face when you're in pain. As they talked, Aldebaran notices that the pain has subsided. Aldebaran rubs his belly. Groovy says that the thorns are probably further away now. However, despite the pain subsiding, the thorns are still on their chest, meaning it's highly likely that their location is being tracked. Cecilus believes that the enemy forces will come, but Cecilus says that they shouldn't kill too many of the undead. After all, it is his intuition. Groovy doesn't really dismiss it, as Arakia and Cecilus have a very good intuition, or gut instincts. Groovy can smell Chisha's manner on Cecilus, revealing that Chisha was the person that shrunk Cecilus down, but Groovy doesn't really know why. It's obvious Chisha had no intention to destroy Valakia. He was very loyal. They decide what to do, thinking about moving closer. However, the closer you get to the thorn user, the greater the pain, and the reason why the pain subsided was because they backed off. Most people would be incapacitated by the pain before they even reached the thorn user. Aldebaran and Groovy look at Cecilus, and Cecilus says he isn't going to rush out since he's using his head. Furthermore, he says that if it was as simple as running forward and cutting off the enemy's head, Groovy would have told him to do it by now. With magic, killing the user will make the magic disappear. Most magic focuses on killing the enemy. But again, once the magic user is killed, all spells cast will disappear. However, when it comes to curses and witchcraft, these spells target the old, the soul of the individual. Most of them will still take effect even if the curse user is killed. This thorn curse, for example, clearly depended on the target's the target's soul. Groovy tells Cecilus to go find the fiend sword Murasame. It was the quickest way to destroy curses, as Murasame could cut curses, contracts, and shapeless things. Cecilus says he doesn't know where it is, but asks Groovy where it is. Groovy says that he cannot smell the sword, because the sword itself cut off smell, meaning it cannot be tracked by scent. We see that the sword Murasame hates Groovy, the person who reforged the sword. The sword was also hard to handle, similar to its owner, Cecilus. Al cuts them off, asking if the sword will help, and Groovy says yes, saying it's either at his house or in a secret vault. But Cecilus is an idiot, so he probably doesn't have a secret location, meaning it's at the house. Aldebaran then asks where the house is, and it's revealed he lives with Arakia in the palace garden. The relationship between Arakia and Cecilus is unknown, even to Groovy. They've known each other for 10 years, but it's obvious Arakia hates Cecilus. It's unknown what Cecilus thinks of Arakia, but they eat and live together. They wonder if the swords have been taken into the castle, but that's where the main enemy is. Cecilus says that an awesome weapon needs to be used. In other words, it's likely they're being used by the undead as powerful weapons. The group decide that they need to go and locate the weapons. Al decides to go to Apex 5, but Groovy gives him the werewolf skin and tells them to split up. After all, Groovy is the only one that can handle the Thorn user. Cecilus looks at Groovy and asks Groovy if he has a chance, but Groovy simply says, "Who the F do you think I am? I am Groovy Gamlet, a 9 Divine General." Cecilus, hearing this, snorts. He's in a very good mood. He then sends Groovy off into battle. The scene changes. Groovy separates from Cecilus and Aldebaran and jumps across the city flamboyantly, attracting attention and showing his groovy side. Groovy spins around saying, "You're here," as the thorns wiggle. It activates the curse, showing that the enemy is nearby. Groovy then says that there's a way out of this, as he pulls out a dagger from his pouch. The dagger has a purple line on it. Groovy then stabs his own neck with the sword. We see that this sword, or dagger, has poison laced in it, and this poison enters Groovy's bloodstream. Groovy continues to push it in, over and over, deeper and deeper, before he immediately pulls it out before he touches his vitals. By doing this, he killed his sense of pain. This poison was used on prisoners that were tortured for information. With this poison, you could torture them and destroy parts of their body selectively. So what Groovy did was poisoned his pain sense so he could essentially kill off his pain detection, meaning that he can no longer feel pain. The reason why he can do this on himself is because he has body hair and fur, which allows him to have greater precision when it comes to small adjustments. With someone like Cecilus or Aldebaran, he would have to eyeball it, which was extremely risky because they would die easily. Groovy knew that eventually, either Vincent or Chisha would die at one point, and now he knew that Chisha died. He could smell it. He calls Chisha an idiot. We see that Vincent ordered Groovy to the border before this incident, before the Great Calamity, but that Vincent that sent him to the border must have been Chisha. Groovy is a bearded dogman. He is strong and he rose to the ranks of 9 Divine General. He subscribes to the philosophy that you must be strong. Victory and defeat are sacred. You need to be strong and show the enemies where hell is. A group of zombies approach Groovy, and Groovy takes out his sickle and chain from his back. This is made from a special material and could reach 30 meters. Attached to the chain were weights that could slide along the chain. Groovy then proceeds to throw the sickle at the undead, swinging it to cleave them in half, but they jump out of the way. However, as the weight slides down the chain, it reaches the undead and then it turns red and explodes, destroying the street and the undead. We see that in the Jalal Red Hills, northwest of Kararagi, there was a red desert, said to be the most dangerous in the land. It was filled with fire mana stone particles as fine as grains of sand, which could explode at the whiff of wind. It was said to be made from the blood and tears of a spirit who failed to become one of the great 4 spirits of the world. Groovy jumped backwards. He feels the curse pulsating, but of course now he cannot feel any pain. He throws his sickle at the enemy above him. The explosion envelops the enemy, however that explosion is cleaved in half. The enemy lands with golden eyes and a cracked face. The man wore garb only worn by Valachian royalty. They looked very similar to Vincent Valachia. However, more importantly, they wielded the Yang Sword Valachia. Of course the dead were coming back alive, so therefore it's obvious that past emperors could also come back alive. And not only that, it's only natural that they would have the Yang Sword. Groovy swears, asking the sword how far it will go against him. In the zombie's right hand was the Spellmaker, the Yang Sword Valachia. However, in the left hand of the undead was the Fiend Sword, Murasame. With that, Groovy was against 2 swords of power, and the chapter ends. So that was an interesting chapter. So Aldebaran and I think Cecilus is going to Apex 5 to look for the Fiend Sword Murasame, which is with Ugard Valachia. But they're going to bump into Heinkel, of course, and hopefully Heinkel will get saved. But yeah, looking good. We'll see how this goes. Thank you for watching.